So Amélie is getting re-released in theaters for Valentine's Day, and we just checked this out for the first time, believe it or not. So we are going to have our full thoughts in just a second.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
I'm a boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Odd Popcorn for that review. I'm Chris.
I'm Nick.
And we are talking about Amélie. So this was directed by Jean-Pierre Joannet, something like that. I'm going to have a real hard time with all the names on this French movie, but this came out in 2001, so most people have already seen it probably. But we hadn't seen this thing, and this is a quirky, crazy little movie. What a nutty ride this took me on. I gotta say, so we don't talk about these things before we record, and so I have no idea what you think about the movie, and we've been careful not to say. But I just gotta say real quick, and then I want to hear what you think. But I'm in love with this movie.
It was pretty great.
I think it's great.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
liked it a
it's
lot.
so quirky and whimsical and fun, and also like not to the point of being like grossly sweet. It has an edge to it too.
Yeah,
It's really bizarre in ways that I could have never predicted, but I can see why it's gotten the status that it has, as like this is kind of regarded as like one of the best films of the 21st century now for sure. And I can see why. It's a funny little movie. I had little worries in the beginning that maybe this wasn't going to be my speed, kind of literally, because it hits you in the beginning with so much fast French narration and so many little things happening, and it's so quirky and weird and everything. At first I was like, I just didn't know what I was going to get myself into. I had no idea what the plot of this was, but
so
so you did like it too, huh?
yeah, I liked it, and it was definitely like reminding me of somebody maybe had like ADD making the movie, just because like so when they introduce characters, and sometimes it's not even a character that's a big important part of the movie. They're like they like this and dislike this, and it reminded me. So we watched that show Love on the Spectrum, and it just reminded me exactly of that because they do the same thing in that show where they're like, he likes trains but dislikes the sound of paper rubbing together, and it's like the same exact
that's
thing that
funny.
they did in this movie. So
That's
I wonder
so
if like,
funny,
that
yeah.
show was like, hey, let's do that, because it was just real quirky and weird things and random things that these people liked or didn't
Random
like.
things. Yeah, she hates her fingers getting wrinkly in the bathtub, but she
Yeah.
loves the sound of cracking knuckles or whatever. But yeah, this just has such an interesting personality to it, and it just the more I watched it, this could have gone on for 4 hours, and I don't know if I would have even noticed. I was just like wrapped up in it. But the main character here, it's basically the main character and then like a revolving cast, like an ensemble revolving cast of all these different people interacting with her life. But well, what's the how would you put the basic story? Because there is kind of a relatively simple story underneath all of it.
I
But
mean, it is a love story, which it takes a long time to get there in between like the actual them finding each other and stuff, which was fine because everything that happened in between was great and entertaining. But it's like kind of this quirky girl who's pretty introverted, sees this guy and kind of falls in love with him, and then does all these like weird things like leaving notes where she knows he's going to be, and he's real quirky too. Like he's looking for this one guy because he's always seeing these like photo booth papers ripped up in the trash of this one guy all over town, so she knows how to find him that way.
it's almost like she falls in love. They're falling in love only with their personalities, the
Right.
personality of each other before they meet, because she's so eccentric and he's this eccentric person where he's like, that's his thing. That's one of the things that he does is like collecting all the discarded photos from this photo booth and putting them into this book. So she's not even met this guy. I thought that was a really unique take on a love story,
Yeah.
because they're falling in love with the idea of each other.
But yeah, it's like you said, the revolving cast of characters. Like she has a job at this diner, and she becomes like this prankster out of nowhere and starts like doing a little love matchmaking, and then also like there's this grocery vendor who's like a real dick to his assistant, who I guess is a little slow or something. So she like
Yeah, maybe like on the spectrum or something.
yeah, and she makes a copy of that guy's key and goes into his apartment and just starts doing these little things like she makes his house shoes smaller. She shortens
Swaps the
cord
foot
and
cream.
stuff for the toothpaste.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyways, yeah, it's
Yeah,
very-
that was funny stuff. I mean, most of the stuff she does though, that's like the most malign that it gets, but it's mostly very benevolent. Like she's actually because it starts with her. The story's taking place in 1997, and she hears the news that Princess Diana's just died, and it's like startles her, and she drops like a plastic marble-looking like perfume cap, and it rolls and hits a loose tile, and that tile opens up into a compartment with like a box of this kid from 40 years ago's little trinkets, and she decides, I'm going to track this guy down wherever he is and get him back to him. And if he likes it, then cool, I'll become a little do-gooder, and if he doesn't, then whatever, no harm done. And that kickstart, it's almost like, not to remind anybody of a movie that I think is awful, but it's almost like a pay it forward kind of thing, where she's like, I just feel nice from doing a good deed, so she starts doing good deeds. And like you said, it does turn into like, is it a good deed or not to like tangle up these two people that aren't like, she's like lying, saying like, this person's interested in you, oh, this person's interested in you, and then watching the chaos unfold and making things happen and the cards fall in a certain kind of way. But that's the thing. This movie's so, even though, like I said, it doesn't shy away from some of the dark parts of the world, it's so positive the whole time. Like, it's nice once in a while to have a movie that doesn't, I'm not holding my breath because somebody getting in a car means that they're probably going to get into a fatal car accident. It doesn't feel like, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like everything's going to come crumbling down.
It's definitely like an upbeat feeling throughout the whole movie.
To point out the, like, edge that I'm talking about here, the beginning of the movie, she's just this little girl. And I thought this was interesting. And there's so many quirky things here, but like, her dad is obsessed with like putting a stethoscope on her and checking her heart rate. And she just wants like closeness with another person and a hug and the affection of her dad so much. And he's such a cold, kind of austere person that whenever he does this, that's like the only affection and touch she gets from him. And so it makes her heart race. And that's made him think that she has a heart problem. Yeah. And so it just completely like derails their lives. They like build their whole lives around making sure she is all right. So they'd never go on all these vacations, and they homeschool her. So she spends all her time alone essentially. And then they go to like Notre Dame, and when they're leaving Notre Dame, some German tourist, I think they say, is just hell bent on and jumps off the top and lands on her mom and kills her. So that's like just a few minutes into the movie. So this is a very positive movie, but it's like, there is some crazy, brutal, darkness that's happening too. What did you think about all the, like, there's so many little visual flourishes that they do here.
Yeah, like when I can't even traveling on a train, it like speeds up in like some weird, I don't know what it reminds me of. It's done in a ton of things, but like some gritty kind of movie or something.
And then there's like there's some black and white scenes that I thought were interesting, and the thing with like in the beginning, it's like her imaginary friend. They say something about her imagination, and she's checking a giant CGI crocodile's heart rate, like cartoon crocodile's heart rate. And then that kind of comes back again, but she's like kind of daydreaming or something in her room. And you see like the pig lamp is like animated, like everything in the room is like animated and personified. They make a lot of funny, like just off the cuff comments, like they're talking about the little pleasures that she enjoys, like skipping stones at the whatever, and they're like sometimes
constantly collecting stones through the movie.
Mm-hmm. And they're like, sometimes she just thinks about how many couples are having an orgasm right at this exact moment, and then they show 15 people back to back, and then she's like, 15. That's the other thing. She talks to the camera a handful of times.
She'll like look straight into it and stuff sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't. She talks about like going to the movie theater and looking back at all the people's faces in the dark. And that was kind of a cool shot. There's just so much to like here. I can totally see. The only thing I could see is like that might hold you back is, well, I mean, you just might not be on the same wavelength as this, this quirky of a movie, but it is very much not a traditional love story in the sense that it basically waits the whole movie for the love the love connection to start in any real sense, so. And
I liked that about it. I liked all the stuff that happened in between.
Mm-hmm. I did like that about it. Oh, so I wanted to talk about this. So there's a guy like across from her named, people call him Mr. Glass or something like that, or the Glass Man.
Yeah, the Glass
and I was like from Unbreakable. Like I wonder who did that first. These movies came out like around the same time. I guess they both have that brittle bone disease, and they both have the nickname Glass Man, like Samuel L. Jackson on Unbreakable, but that's a divergent topic. I just couldn't help but think, like, I wonder who did the Glass Man thing first, and I wonder if they even knew about each other making that reference.
Maybe they didn't know, or maybe M. Night Shyamalan came up with it from watching the series.
Yeah. But I thought they did a cool thing with that where he's like, at first he's like this reclusive. Nobody can be around him because he's got such brittle bones and all this. But he's painting a replica of a very famous painting that I'm not going to Google right now, but you've seen it, and I'll put it up on the screen right now. But he does that same painting another copy of that same painting every year, and he can never get the one girl in the painting right, like her face right, and she's kind of looks like she's not 100% present with the rest of the people. Like her mind's kind of off in the distance, and she's drinking this water, and that becomes all throughout the movie. That becomes kind of a metaphor for Amélie. He starts kind of asking her personal questions about her life through this allegory and analogy of the girl in the painting. What it amounts to, like the driving force of the plot of this movie is like Amélie becomes somebody who becomes obsessed with like the little joys that you get from anonymously giving other people a happy moment. And that's illustrated in the movie with them like glowing in some kind of interesting way. Like it does this orange glowy thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Which is, sometimes it's borderline. One time in particular, it was like weird. Like the driving thing is she's not thinking about herself and all this and finding her own happiness. And so we finally get at the end of the movie, she kind of has that last moment of like, oh, she finally found happiness. So I thought that was cool.
I know another thing I liked about the movie, the color palette was really cool.
Oh yeah, all like the production design and art direction, everything is like amazing here, and it won got nominated for a bunch of awards all over This won a lot more stuff in like Europe, but this got a ton of award consideration when it came out.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise
I can totally
me.
see why. Yeah, it's very French. Some people have, at least at the time it was released, some people came out and said like this is like a misrepresentation of France. Like it's like an old antiquated idea of what France used to be mapped onto 2001 France, and it's not really like that anymore at all. But I think that's like the whimsy of all of it, and like you're telling a story. It's allowed to.
It's still just a movie.
It's a piece of art, yeah. I thought this was cool for the 4 people in the world that watched the show Pushing Daisies back in the day. It was one of those shows that like people loved it and then it got canceled kind of too early. But Pushing Daisies is like everything about Pushing Daisies is inspired by this movie, I found out.
Oh.
And it does have like very much the same kind of aesthetic, and it just like the guy who was making Pushing Daisies was basically like telling everybody involved just like watch Amélie over and over again, and that's what I want everything here to feel like. And if you've ever watched Pushing Daisies, you can totally feel the vibes of this movie all over it. So if you like this movie, maybe check out Pushing Daisies.
If you haven't seen it, you definitely should.
Yeah, for sure. And it's getting and the reason we're watching this is it's getting re-released in theaters. So if you get a chance to watch this in theaters, I would highly recommend doing that. I think this is a great date movie, and it beats the pants off of. I mean, I guess the jury's out, but I think this beats the pants off of like Argyle or Lisa Frankenstein. So
yeah.
So anyway, what would you give it?
I think I'm gonna go high and give it like a 9.5. This is a really good movie.
Yeah. I feel weird now giving it a 9, so I'm gonna give it a 9.5. I loved it, so I'm surprised you gave it that high of a score, yeah. But yeah, I love this thing, so highly recommend. Let us know what you think about this movie below. If you've seen other things from this director too, I'm interested to see your thoughts on that. I haven't seen a lot from this guy. I kind of need to look it up again. Hit like below. Subscribe. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers over there, so help us get to that goal. Appreciate you watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you.